December 7th, 1941, 7:48 a.m., Hawaiian time. The rising sun glints off the waters of Oahu as a sleepy calm lingers over Pearl Harbor. Seagulls drift across the golden horizon, the air heavy with the scent of salt and oil. On the deck of the USS Arizona, Seaman First Class Harold Schubert leans against a railing, coffee in hand, watching the clouds break. He has no idea that within minutes, the world will change forever. Then, an eerie whine builds overhead.
Fire! Keep firing!
Lieutenant Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, sitting in the cockpit of his Nakajima BA-5N torpedo bomber, lowers his binoculars and grips the intercom. Beneath him, the U.S. Pacific Fleet lies motionless, gleaming like targets painted on glass. "Tora, Tora, Tora!" he shouts into the radio, the signal that total surprise has been achieved. Moments later, the first wave descends from the clouds like a storm of metal. The tranquility of Pearl Harbor shatters in a heartbeat. Sirens wail. Anti-aircraft gunners scramble barefoot across hot decks. The sky fills with black smoke and tracer fire as bombs slam into the battleships Arizona, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. The Arizona's magazine detonates. A blinding flash followed by a mushroom of flame that engulfs the harbor. Men are thrown into the oily water, faces burned, uniforms shredded. Some swim, some scream, some simply vanish beneath the fire. Above it all, 39-year-old Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto sits aboard the Nagato in the inland sea of Japan, listening to radio reports from the strike leader. At 8:00 a.m., the confirmation comes through. 6 American battleships crippled or sunk, over 200 aircraft destroyed, thousands dead. The Japanese officers around him cheer and exchange sake cups. But Yamamoto does not smile. He removes his cap and stares out the window toward the gray Pacific, the reflection of his face merging with the sea. "A brilliant victory," one officer says proudly. Yamamoto's reply is quiet, almost lost in the hum of the room. "I fear," he says, "all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." He knows what others don't. This victory is a fleeting illusion. The United States has something Japan does not, a vast industrial engine waiting to roar awake. While Japanese pilots return home as heroes, America mourns in silence. That evening, President Franklin D. Roosevelt paces the White House map room, jaw set, listening to reports of destruction. Beside him stands his Navy aide, Commander George Elsey. "This," Roosevelt mutters, "is war." The next day, his voice will thunder through Congress. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941. A date which will live in infamy. Across the nation, enlistment lines wrap around blocks. Teenagers lie about their age to join the Navy. Women flood munitions factories. In Detroit, Henry Ford promises to convert every plant to military production. The sleeping giant Yamamoto feared is stirring, slowly, methodically, unstoppably. Meanwhile, Japan celebrates. Newspapers in Tokyo print bold headlines. America's Pacific Fleet destroyed. Parades fill the streets. Yet, in Yamamoto's quarters, a map covers the wall, dotted with red pins marking conquered territories. The Philippines, Guam, Hong Kong, Malaya.
I know the convoy.
His staff sees expansion. Yamamoto sees exposure. The more Japan stretches, the thinner its lifeline becomes. He understands America's geography, vast, resource-rich, protected by oceans. Japan's empire, by contrast, depends on fragile supply lines snaking thousands of miles across the Pacific. "We can run wild for 6 months," he warns his staff. "Maybe a year. After that, I have no expectation of success." In those 6 months, Japan will indeed run wild, taking Manila, Singapore, and even the Dutch East Indies. But each victory pulls them deeper into a war they cannot sustain. Each triumph adds another line on Yamamoto's map, and another worry in his mind. In America, the gears of retribution are beginning to turn. Factories in Pittsburgh and Chicago work through the night. Aircraft plants in California roar with the sound of rivet guns and hammer strikes. Within weeks, the U.S. Navy begins raising sunken ships from Pearl Harbor's depths. The West Virginia is pumped dry, refitted, and readied for battle. "We will rebuild every ship," a Navy engineer vows, "and send them back twice as deadly." By the spring of 1942, Yamamoto's intelligence officers begin reporting disturbing figures. America, once thought paralyzed, is producing hundreds of planes per week. Shipyards on both coasts churn out destroyers and carriers at a rate Japan cannot match. The Japanese Navy, designed for decisive battles, will soon face an enemy that can replace losses faster than they can inflict them.
Sequence activate.
Yamamoto watches it all unfold with grim resignation.
Wildcats forward.
He has awakened the industrial god of war
The enemy fleet is
and knows it
positioned
cannot be
here.
put back to sleep.
We launch at dawn.
January
Maintain
1942,
radio
Washington, D.C.
silence and hit your targets
The winter
hard.
air bites through the marble
Good luck,
corridors of the
gentlemen.
Navy Department. Inside, maps sprawl across every table. The
They're
Pacific,
saying the
the
whole
Atlantic,
Japanese
the
fleet
endless
is
dots of
coming this
islands
way.
whose names
Just
few
focus
Americans
on the
can yet
fuel,
pronounce.
Mac.
President Franklin D. Roosevelt leans over the situation board, his cigarette holder tilted at an angle. "Gentlemen," he says to his chiefs of staff, "we're not rebuilding a fleet. We're building a war machine." Across the United States, that war machine comes to life with a roar. Detroit's automobile factories, once turning out sedans and coupes, now produce bombers and tanks. The Ford plant in Willow Run becomes a legend, rolling out a B-24 Liberator every 63 minutes. In California, women with grease-streaked faces and bandanas tie back their hair, riveting the wings of P-51 Mustangs. The posters call them Rosie the Riveter, but in truth, they are the unseen soldiers of the home front.
Behind the line, we're taking heavy fire.
The country's transformation is staggering. In 1941, America built fewer than 3,000 military aircraft. By 1943,
Red lines
that number will
indicate the
exceed
main fleet
85,000. Steel output doubles. Shipyards
Hold the
launch new
carriers
Liberty ships
here,
faster than
Lieutenant.
Japan can sink them.
We
One
must
journalist
secure
writes,
Midway at all
"It's as if the
costs."
entire nation has become a single weapon."
Clear the flight deck.
In
Get
Japan,
those engines started
the reality
now.
begins to dawn.
Move, move.
Admiral Yamamoto, still commander-in-chief of the combined fleet, spends long nights aboard his flagship Yamato, studying intelligence reports. Each document tells the same grim story. America's factories, manpower, and morale are surging beyond prediction. The Admiral knows what his government refuses to admit.
Hits on cover.
Japan's industrial base cannot sustain a long war against such a giant.
Fiery eruptions rip
But there is no turning back.
sailors
The Emperor expects
scatter
victory,
munitions
whispers
and
Vice
guns.
Admiral
The hangar
Ugaki,
is hit.
Yamamoto's
Get
loyal
water
aide.
down there now.
Yamamoto nods slowly. Then we must deliver him one decisive battle
Massive fire.
before their strength becomes
Flight deck.
overwhelming.
Keep fighting it. All fighters
That plan takes form as Operation MI,
Move.
the invasion of Midway Island.
We're losing
The idea is
time.
simple. Lure what remains of the U.S. Pacific Fleet into a trap, annihilate its carriers, and force America to negotiate peace. It is bold, it is elegant, and it is a gamble. June 4th, 1942. Midway Atoll, Central Pacific at dawn. The Pacific is calm. Waves shimmer under the first light as Japanese carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu steam eastward. On their decks, pilots adjust goggles and climb into cockpits.
Abandoned ship!
Yamamoto's plan is unfolding perfectly, or so it seems. Unbeknownst to him, U.S. cryptanalysts in Pearl Harbor have broken Japan's naval code. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, commanding the Pacific Fleet, knows exactly where Yamamoto will strike. 3 American carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown, lie in wait. At 7:10 a.m., the first Japanese bombs fall on Midway Island, sending plumes of black smoke into the air. But as their aircraft return, disaster approaches from the clouds. From 20,000 feet, U.S. Navy dive bombers from Enterprise and Yorktown dive steeply toward the Japanese fleet. Pilots scream into their radios, "They're right below us!" Seconds later, the Pacific explodes. Bombs tear through the decks of Akagi and Kaga, igniting fuel lines and munitions. Fireballs engulf the flight decks, consuming planes, pilots, and sailors. Within minutes, 3 of Japan's 4 carriers are burning ruins. The 4th, Hiryu, launches a desperate counterattack, but is hunted down by sunset. By nightfall, Yamamoto's dream of a decisive victory lies beneath the waves. On the bridge of the Yamato, the Admiral receives the message in silence. His staff wait for his reaction, an order, a curse, anything. But Yamamoto only closes his eyes.
Keep an eye
So,
on that oil
he
pressure
murmurs.
gauge.
The giant
Maintaining
is fully
altitude,
awakened.
switching to auxiliary tank 3 now.
He understands now. Japan's best chance has passed. The Pacific, once a Japanese lake, will soon become an American highway. In the months that follow, the tide turns relentlessly. American submarines choke Japan's supply lines. Carrier groups strike across the Pacific, from Guadalcanal to the Solomons. The same shipyards that once built cars now forge floating air bases faster than Japan can sink them. And behind every victory stands the machine Yamamoto feared most, the United States itself.
He's heading southeast.
From a Vermont
to Google,
farmhand hammering
timing
rivets in a
correlates
factory,
with the Aidens.
to a Brooklyn girl testing radio circuits, to a Kansas wheat farmer sending his son to war, they are all parts of the same unstoppable force. Yamamoto, ever the realist, writes in his diary that winter, "We have made a fatal mistake. In destroying one fleet, we have created a nation united by vengeance." He continues his duties with stoic discipline, planning new operations. But deep down, he knows the truth. Japan cannot win a war of attrition against a country that can rebuild faster than it can bleed. As the winter of 1942 fades, the Yamato turns south, bound for another campaign. The Admiral stands at the rail, wind tugging at his coat. In the distance, the Pacific stretches infinite and indifferent. "If I must die," he says softly to Ugaki, "let it be in the sky, not behind a desk." He will get his wish. April 18th, 1943, Bougainville, Solomon Islands. The morning air hums with tropical heat as U.S. Army Air Force's ground crews cluster around a squadron of P-38 Lightnings. The engines rumble low, their twin tails glinting under the sun. Captain Thomas Lanfear wipes sweat from his brow as he climbs into the cockpit, his hands trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from the knowledge that this mission is unlike any other. The briefing had been short and cryptic. The intelligence officer's voice still echoes in Lanfear's mind. "Gentlemen, your target is Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor. For months, American cryptographers of the Navy's MAGIC program have been intercepting and decoding Japanese radio transmissions. One message stands out. Yamamoto's inspection itinerary in the Solomon Islands. It lists exact coordinates, altitude, and time. 9:45 a.m., near Bougainville. President Roosevelt himself approves the strike. The operation is codenamed Vengeance. At 7 o'clock a.m., 18 P-38s lift off from Guadalcanal. They must fly 400 miles over open ocean, hugging the waves to avoid radar detection. Lanfear's squadron leader, Major John Mitchell, keeps his voice steady over the radio. Maintain altitude at 50 feet. No chatter. We've got one chance. Meanwhile, far to the north, Admiral Yamamoto sits calmly in the passenger seat of his Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber. The sea below gleams like molten glass. At 59 years old, Yamamoto remains composed, impeccably dressed, every button fastened. His aide, Major Matome Ugaki, glances over. "You seem at peace today, sir." Yamamoto smiles faintly. "If they should come for me, I will be waiting." He gazes out the window at the endless Pacific, the same ocean he once thought Japan could command. He knows the war is turning. American submarines strangle the Empire's shipping routes. Cities once untouchable are now within bomber range. Factories lie silent from lack of steel and oil. The Admiral, ever the realist, has long sensed his fate approaching. 34 a.m. Over the jungle canopy, the drone of aircraft grows louder. Lanfear spots movement through a break in the clouds. 2 bombers, escorted by 6 Zeros. "That's him," he whispers. The formation breaks. The P-38s surge upward, throttles wide open. The sky erupts into chaos. Machine guns chatter. Tracers streak across blue sky. A P-38 screams past, its wing clipped by return fire. Lanfear dives head-on toward the lead, Betty. The Japanese gunners open up, bullets tearing through his canopy. He squeezes the trigger. His guns blaze and smoke billows from the bomber's right engine. Seconds later, the second P-38, piloted by Rex Barber, strafes Yamamoto's aircraft from below. The Betty shudders, wings trembling violently. Flames pour from the fuselage as it banks sharply, loses altitude, and disappears into the jungle below. The second bomber, carrying Ugaki, limps away, riddled with holes but barely airborne. The jungle below smolders as Yamamoto's plane crashes through the trees, erupting in fire. Hours later, a Japanese search party reaches the site. The forest is silent except for the crackle of burning leaves. They find the wreckage of the Betty scattered across a clearing. Twisted metal, scorched uniforms, fragments of the rising sun. Inside, seated upright against the base of a tree, is Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. His sword lies beside him, his white gloves still immaculate.
That's the third time
A bullet
we've
hole
lost
marks
a
his
bird over
jawline.
that sector.
His face is serene,
What
almost
happened up
dignified.
there? We
His
took
men
heavy
bow in
flak,
silence.
sir.
No one speaks.
The hydraulics were failing.
Word spreads quickly through the fleet. The officers aboard Yamato stand frozen as the message arrives. Vice Admiral Ugaki, having survived in the second plane, insists on retrieving the Admiral's remains personally. When he returns, the ship's bell tolls 6 times. 1 for each year Yamamoto served as commander of the combined fleet. The Emperor orders a state funeral. In Tokyo, citizens line the streets in mourning, unaware that the tide of war has already doomed them. Yamamoto's ashes are divided, half buried in Tokyo, half returned to his birthplace, Nagaoka. In Washington, the mood is grimly satisfied. The mission has succeeded, but the cost of the war is mounting daily. Roosevelt, briefed on the strike, says only, "He sowed the wind at Pearl Harbor and reaped the whirlwind at Bougainville." Yet, Even in death, Yamamoto's shadow looms large. His strategies, his emphasis on carrier warfare, long-range strike capability, and naval coordination will define the Pacific conflict to its end. The very tactics he pioneered will now be turned against his own empire. From Midway to Leyte Gulf, from the skies over Iwo Jima to the waters off Okinawa, American fleets will push forward with mechanical precision. The sleeping giant Yamamoto feared now fully awake, its eyes fixed on Tokyo. By 1945, Japan's cities will burn, its navy sunk, its skies ruled by America.